In this lecture, I'll show you how you can achieve an effect like this, so you can exercise your vandalism in Photoshop before you set off bombing the streets. The key here is to make the text really look like it's been applied in the real world. This means it should follow all the bumps of the wall, all the holes, and so on. This technique will work on just about any texture out there. For even more realism, I decided to make it a bit faded in the lower region. Maybe your spray can ran out of juice right at that time, or maybe time has taken its toll on it. Either way, we'll have fun. The first step is to open this brick wall image with Ctrl-O. It has to be a flat image like I have it here with this lock icon, so no dragging and dropping please. Now save it as a .psd file anywhere you like. I'll put it on my desktop and I'll call it Displace. You'll see in a minute why that's the case. Great. Now let's write something on it, something clever, something that Banksy would say. Written in stone, I don't know, something. I'll use Montserrat, bold, pure black with a huge size because this is a huge image, 497 pixels. This is a Google font, by the way, so feel free to download it. Next, I'll convert it to a smart object, nothing out of the ordinary. Now the magic. Go to the top menu and click on Filter. From here, go to Distort, Displace, thus the name. In this box, we'll put 20 for both of these boxes. The rest we'll leave as is. Press OK. Those values set how much the text will follow our stone wall. Remember, we made it a smart object, so this means we can adjust things if those values aren't right. To see the effect better, we'll lower the fill to 0% and we'll add a colour overlay. For the colour, we'll go with AC3131. For the blending mode, we'll go with overlay. This is a trial and error process. You have to experiment and see which blend mode gives you the best result. Now we have our lovely effect. Again, this works on just about every texture out there, and you could do a few other steps to improve it by 10 or 20%, but I don't personally think it's worth it. This way, it's dead easy to follow and replicate. Besides the colour overlay, we can adjust the opacity to 50 to 70% for a more washed out effect. It depends how strong you want it. I'll keep it at 100% though, so it'll be easier to pick up on the changes I'm about to make. I'll add a satin effect too. This burns the letters on the outside just a bit. Think of it as an inner shadow, but without adding that depth. For the settings, I'll use pure black at 50% with multiply as the blending mode. The angle is set at 90 degrees and that's fine. And for the distance and size, I'll use 12 and 38 pixels respectively. Make sure invert is not checked, otherwise you'll be looking at something completely different. Great. One final step I'm going to take is this. I'll add a layer mask and I'll make sure my colours are set to black and white. I can press D to reset them to this default. Now, with the gradient tool and my mask selected, I can click and drag a few times. This makes the text faded, and depending on how much you drag, that's going to decide how smooth the transition will be. Notice that if I drag and release immediately, the effect is very sudden. That's usually not what you're after. Instead, go with longer drags, then let go. I know I've repeated this technique many times, but I've seen countless students have issues with it. I also like to hold down the Shift key to get a perfectly vertical line. That's because if you drag from odd angles, you'll get an odd result. Remember that each time you drag, the mask resets. So it's a bit of trial and error until you get your bounds, and then you drag once, and that's it. But you can also get a black brush, set the opacity to 20% or so, and start removing parts of text. This only works if you still have the mask selected. You can't edit your smart objects like that. So you can spend an extra 10 minutes and get a really realistic worn-out stencil. My advice is you take each letter and put your own personal touch to it. Make it worn out asymmetrically. Also, if you want to change the text, double-click the smart object, get the type tool and write something else. Let's say it's written in stone or anything else. Then use Ctrl-S to save it and switch over to your initial tab. This is a great effect that takes only a few minutes to master. As always, you have this image attached, so be sure to practice. Have fun!